Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, President Trump's major moves on his trip to the Middle East, meeting with the new leader of Syria, once again warning Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, and inviting Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords. Will Russian President Vladimir Putin meet with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Turkey for peace talks in the war in Ukraine? We're going to bring you a report from Istanbul. Here in the United States, a major case is going to the Supreme Court, which could determine how much power judges have to block a president's order. And our Studio 5 conversation with recording artist and pastor Darius Washington about his new musical project, Live by Faith. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Wednesday, May 14th. We begin this half hour in the Middle East, where President Trump, in addition to meeting with key leaders and once again sending a warning to Iran over its nuclear program, has also made a series of major economic and political moves that will have a major impact on the region, the U.S. and Israel. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports now from Jerusalem.
This morning in Saudi Arabia, President Trump met with Syria's new leader just one day after announcing he's lifting sanctions on the country. The move came amidst a flurry of other activity Tuesday when the president signed a deal worth hundreds of billions of dollars with the Saudi kingdom, encouraged the crown prince to recognize Israel, and issued a new warning to Iran. The deals with Saudi Arabia amount to about $600 billion. Including a $142 billion arms agreement. At the Saudi Investor Conference, President Trump said he hopes Saudi Arabia will join the Abraham Accords.
It's my fervent hope, wish, and even my dream that Saudi Arabia, a place I have such respect for, especially over the last fairly short period of time, what you've been able to do, but we'll soon be joining the Abraham Accords. But it will be a special day in the Middle East with the whole world watching when Saudi Arabia joins us, and you'll be greatly honoring me, and you'll be greatly honoring all of those people that have fought so hard for the Middle East, and I really think it's going to be something special, but you'll do it in your own time.
He also criticized the regime in Tehran and blamed it for much of the turmoil in the Middle East.
The biggest and most destructive of these forces is the regime in Iran, which has caused unthinkable suffering in Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, Yemen, and beyond.
And he issued an ultimatum.
I want to make a deal with Iran. If I can make a deal with Iran, I'll be very happy if we're going to make your region and the world a safer place. But if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero like I did before, and take all action required to stop the regime from ever having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
Trump also announced the U.S. has taken steps to normalize relations with Syria and will lift sanctions at the urging of Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman and Turkish President Erdogan. In his meeting with Syrian President al-Sharaa today, Trump encouraged him to join the Abraham Accords and to tell all foreign terrorists to leave Syria. However, some question if al-Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda commander, can be trusted.
He don't change. His speak may be moderate, but particularly in facts, he is a radical Sunni man. I talked to people, all this radical group, they said we will make our country Islamic Republic.
Cito says minorities in Syria are fearful of the new government.
We need protection. All these countries supported radical Islam, radical Sunni groups in Syria. We are in fear. They have to help us to protect us for radical Islam.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, President Trump is asking 5 things of the president of Syria. What are they?
Well, it's a pretty strong list, Ephraim. First of all, to sign on to the Abraham Accords with Israel. Then the next one, he says, tell all foreign terrorists to leave Syria. Now, that's very difficult for many think for al-Sharaa to do because Many of those terrorists actually were brought in by him when they took over the Assad regime. The other thing is to deport Palestinian terrorists and then help the United States to prevent the resurgence of ISIS, and then assume a responsibility for ISIS detention centers in northeast Syria. And a lot of people are concerned about that because there's tens of thousands of ISIS prisoners that nobody really wants to have let loose inside Syria and the wider Middle East. So it's a lot to ask of a former al-Qaeda commander, and whether or not he can do this, and does this mean maybe deporting or turning his back on some of his own supporters? He walks a fine line between his new image that he's carefully cultivating with world leaders, including U.S. President Donald Trump, and the ones who helped make him come to power. So, and also one other question then, and we talked with Kamal Sito about this, who's really in control of Syria? Is it Syria or is it Turkey? He was telling us that actually in Damascus, many of the leaders of the government now are Turkish. And so we don't know if President Erdogan really is casting a shadow over Syria right now, and who's actually in control.
What is the view in Israel of the new government of Syria? Would Israel welcome them into the Abraham Accords?
Well, there's no official reaction yet, but I think the Times of Israel said Netanyahu recently asked Trump not to lift the sanctions. I would say here in Israel there's cautious optimism, but also what you could call strategic concern. It really depends if the new government is going to change. A few weeks ago, Israel Defense Minister Katz called al-Sharaa a jihadist terrorist from the Al-Qaeda school. So they're wary of this new government. They established a buffer zone up in the northern border of Israel, up on Mount Hermon and very close to Damascus. And as soon as this new government took over in December, they destroyed much of Assad's military, and they were afraid it was going to fall into the hands of this new government. And remember, just 4 months ago, al-Sharaa, then called al-Julani, had a $10 million reward on his head. And also in the last couple of months, there's been a massacre of Alawites, some of those who included Christians. They've attacked the Druze recently. The Druze actually have asked Israel for protection. But despite all that, apparently there's been back-channel negotiations to try to have some relation between Israel and this new government.
Trump also told Saudi Arabia he hopes they will join the Abraham Accords, but will the Saudis absolutely insist on a Palestinian state in order for that to happen, or would they join the Accords without that condition?
Well, it remains to be seen, and there was some talk and possibility that maybe Mahmoud Abbas would be there at the summit, the Palestinian Authority president. Trump said in his speech, it's really up to the Saudis to make that decision when they come, a time of their choosing. He didn't stay recognizing a Palestinian state, but that's certainly one of the issues. The Saudis may eventually soften their position. And one other thing, Ephraim, I don't think they would likely make any declaration about the Abraham Accords until the war in Gaza is over, and that may take several more months.
Trump again said all action will be taken so Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Does Israel still believe military strikes on Iran, if they are possible?
Yeah, I believe it's possible, viable. Trump said in his speech that all action would be taken against Iran if they don't change, and they will not get a nuclear weapon. Certainly Israel can act independently if they want to, but I believe they're waiting right now on the results of the U.S.-Iran talks about the nuclear program. So right now they're walking a delicate balance, but certainly a military option to destroy Iran's nuclear program is on the table.
The Israeli Defense Forces targeted Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar. Who is he and why is this significant?
Well, he's the brother of Yahya Sinwar, who was the late leader of Hamas. And right now, that brother is the current military leader of Hamas. And it's all part of the IDF effort to dismantle the Hamas leadership. He would be the last major figure associated with October 7th, but there's no official confirmation that he has been killed. And reportedly, Sinwar was really intransigent about the current hostage negotiations. So whether or not he has been killed or not remains to be seen, but it could have an impact on negotiations if they don't know who actually is making the decisions there in Gaza.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insights. Of course, we look forward to hearing from you again in the days ahead this week. Want to turn now to the war between Ukraine and Russia. The focus is on Istanbul in Turkey. The city could hold a critical meeting between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, creating a potential turning point in the war that has dragged on for more than 3 years. George Thomas brings us that story now from Istanbul.
Security is heightened across Istanbul and along the Bosphorus Strait as the city prepares for a potential high-stakes meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy. CBN News spoke with Russian tourists Vladislav and Katya, who are visiting the city and hoping their president will finally give peace a chance.
I think this is a great chance for our country to resolve this issue once and for all, so that it has a good outcome and we can stop this conflict.
Some Turkish citizens also urged President Putin to meet with the Ukrainian leader.
I'm sure Ukraine is worried about what peace will look like, but that's a better option than war. I welcome Putin coming to my country and meeting with Zelenskyy. A peace agreement would benefit all parties involved.
Putin proposed the direct negotiations in Turkey, and Zelenskyy said he would meet him there. So far, the Russians have not announced who they are sending, and Zelenskyy has said he will only meet with Putin.
I believe that if Putin does not arrive and play games, it is the final point that he does not want to end the war.
If Putin shows up here in Istanbul, it would be a very big move. He has made it very clear he dislikes Zelenskyy and has even questioned whether he's a legitimate president. The last time these two men met was back in 2019. This would be the first face-to-face meeting since Russia invaded Ukraine over 3 years ago.
Turkish President Erdogan, who has agreed to host the talks, says efforts to end the war have reached a turning point.
As the only country that has gained the trust of all parties, we have reiterated that we are ready to contribute to these talks and that we will be happy to host them. We see that a new window of opportunity has emerged with the recent developments.
Meanwhile, President Trump, currently on a 4-day Middle East tour, floated the idea of diverting to Istanbul.
If I thought it would be helpful, I don't know where I'm going to be at that particular point. I'll be someplace in the Middle East, but I would fly there if I thought it would be helpful.
Trump, speaking in Saudi Arabia, announced that Secretary of State Marco Rubio will attend Thursday's talks. The U.S. and European allies have ramped up efforts to end the war, which has already claimed tens of thousands of lives. Whether the meeting happens or not, the world is watching. The next steps toward peace may well be decided here in Turkey. George Thomas, CBN News, Istanbul.
Coming up here at home, a major case is coming to the Supreme Court that could have a long-term impact on the ability of federal judges to block presidential orders. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. The Supreme Court is set to take on a major case tomorrow that could redefine the limits of judicial power. The policy in question in this case involves birthright citizenship, but the real issue is whether individual federal judges should have the authority to block presidential executive orders. CBN's Brody Carter explains how the court's ruling could shape presidential power for years to come.
People that come into our country and they walk in and all of a sudden they become citizens and they pay a lot of money to different cartels and others.
In early 2025, President Trump signed an executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship for children born in the U.S. to non-citizen parents. In response, Washington State's Attorney General and 3 other states sued the Trump administration.
We do not have a king. We have a president who must abide by the laws. And if they want to amend the Constitution, there is a process by which to do that.
And at least 4 federal judges blocked the president's order, issuing preliminary injunctions that put the move on hold while legal challenges played out. But the Supreme Court isn't weighing in on the policy of birthright citizenship itself, at least not yet. a decision that could redefine the balance between the executive branch and the judiciary.
Sometimes you do want nationwide injunctions. For example, if there's an immigration policy, you can't have different standards being applied depending on whether someone flies into JFK Airport in New York versus LAX in California. But there have to be procedures in place so that the appeal to the Federal Circuit Court goes up very quickly.
Ilya Shapiro, director of constitutional studies with the Manhattan Institute, says the case could redefine how national policies are challenged in court and how much power a single judge should have.
People are saying now that the most powerful office in the federal government is that of a district judge.
Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch have called nationwide injunctions legally and historically dubious. And while critics call it judicial overreach, Mike Fox with the Cato Institute says this is exactly what the courts are supposed to do.
But, you know, the idea that courts can't issue nationwide injunctions is just ridiculous. And if you're going to say that the rulings can only be confined to the parties or confined to a specific jurisdiction, you're dramatically increasing the amount of litigation. You're also, you know, making inconsistencies across the board. I don't really see how that benefits anyone. At the end of the day, the law is the law.
Paul Larkin with the Heritage Foundation disagrees, saying federal judges exceed their constitutional authority when one district court can halt national policy. He questions whether a single judge should hold that much power and says this case could mark a turning point in rebalancing the branches of government.
Yes, a nationwide injunction issued by one judge has the benefit of trying to resolve an issue quickly. But that short-run benefit is greatly outweighed by the long-run benefit of making sure we get it done not quickly, but correctly, or to the best of our ability.
As justices hear oral arguments, legal experts are watching to see if the court draws new limits on nationwide injunctions or stand by them as a check on executive power. I'm Brody Carter, CBN News.
When we come back, we're turning to the world of entertainment. Our Studio 5 interview with pastor, producer, and recording artist Darius Washington about his new musical project, Live by Faith. We'll hear from him right after this. Darius Washington is a pastor, producer, and recording artist with a new live musical recording. It is out of the box and extraordinary. Tell me about the birth of this project. I know you said some of the songs on it are as old as 13, 14 years old. How did we get here? What happened?
Absolutely, man. Life. So lots of trials, lots of tribulation, lots of tests, just throughout the years of going through divorce, homelessness, and evictions. Car repossessions, losing everything, starting businesses failing, but still staying true and faithful to gospel music and the sound of gospel music and my church roots. You know, at this point, after all the production and the BET Sunday Best and all the things, right, I finally feel like have come to a place where I could put together, right, a project and produce a project that I feel would really give a voice to the testimony of those 15 years. Like that's how we're here with this project.
Not only is this a testimony of that, but it's also a celebration of gospel music, if you will.
Absolutely. All day. All day. All day. I told him, I said, man, gospel music is the soundtrack of my childhood. Growing up in church, my dad's a pastor. My mom's dad was an elder and a minister. You walk in the church, into that General Assembly, and there's 100 voices in the choir stand, and we are having some church. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
But then they're transitioning into a hymn. Then they're transitioning into worship, bended knees, hands lifted, heart surrendered to God. And that's where you start to get like some of the diversity of the music that you hear on the record. But this is my childhood, man. You know, this is roots for me.
I know that you shot a music video, I think, for When I Call. Yep. Tell me about, because even that video was a faith walk, if you will.
Absolutely, man. That video, I started When I Call, just a word from the Lord. And the heart behind that was New Jack Swing, kind of like a 80s, 90s vibe. And I was like, you know what, we're gonna do something cool, we're gonna do something different. I said, I wanna shoot a music video. Man, Efren, I started that project with nothing. No money to do it, just a vision from God. Put like this, no budget to do it, right? And I told a friend about it, and he said, man, I've been looking to do a music video. I wanna add to my portfolio. He's a professional videographer, cinematographer. He comes and he literally takes on the cost and the budget of the project. I can't make this stuff up. Like, the title of the record is To Live by Faith. Every single journey, everything that God has called me to do has been a faith walk, and he keeps proving himself over and over and over.
Darius Washington's new project, Live by Faith, is available wherever you get your music and stream your listening material. Be sure to join us this evening for an all-new edition of Studio 5. We're sitting down with New York Times best-selling author Annie F. Downs. She's talking about her first-of-its-kind children's book that explores death, grief, and heaven. You can watch Studio 5 this evening on the CBN News Channel at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, and you can find it on YouTube. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Wednesday.
Your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is desire. Know this: desire motivates decisions. Make sure your desires are pure. Desire more God. He will fill your cup and satisfy every want and need. Fill my cup, Lord. I lift it up, Lord. Come quench this thirst in my soul. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Pure heart and pure desire leads to unconditional love and pure joy. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. Take a moment and let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow.